to start with Parshat Bereshit, and we'll hopefully work our way at least a little bit into Noach, and then we'll, over the course of the next few weeks, we will hopefully work our way through the Sefer, catching up and surpassing the weekly Parsha, so you will be well prepared and ahead of the game. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is to get a little countercultural. We're gonna spend our day, as it says over here, defending Cain. I am probably the closest thing you'll find to a Cain fan, or at least a Cain defender. And we're gonna see why. The Cain story, the Cain and Hevel story. It's funny I call it the Cain story because I know where we're going. Is one where if you talk to people generally, and this is the way we're always brought up, we know, especially in Sefer Bereshit, right? You always have the good brother and the bad brother, right? You have Yaakov and Esau, and you have Yitzchak and Yishmael, you have Shem and Cham, right? You always have the good brother and the bad brother, and therefore we kind of know, well, if Cain killed Hevel, Cain killed Abel, so then we kind of know who's the good brother and who's the bad brother. If you look at the Psukim, it paints a sparse and I think a little bit of a more complicated picture that I want to explore right now. And part of what makes it complicated is really the scarcity of information that the Psukim give us, and therefore there's a lot of filling in that has to go on both by Chazal and by other readers. But if we want, what I want to do today, just to give a little bit of a roadmap, is we're going to strip back all of that, go back to the Psukim, see what we see from there, and then follow a line within Chazal, right, within Midrashim and the Gemara. I'm not arguing that this is the line, this is the only line. There certainly are other strands within Chazal who just view the traditional view that we've, I think is somewhat more popular, which is Cain bad, Hevel good. But I think there is this strand, as we'll see, that paints it a little bit differently. Thanks. And there are plenty of Chumashim over here. We might need that a little bit later on. We don't need it right now. Okay, so if you look over here, it introduces the story, just to give a little bit of context, right? What just happened was God creates the world in 6 days, rests on the seventh. On that sixth day, he creates animals, Adam, Chava, and on that very same day, they eat from the Eitz Hadat, right? They violate the one command that God had given them. They get banished from the Garden of Eden, and all these different curses are given, right? Just to quickly review, the snake gets his curse, which is not so relevant to us. Adam gets his curse, right? Primarily, what is the curse? First Chava gets her curse. What is the primary curse of Chava? And we'll do it again inside in a moment, but just as a little bit of background, pain and childbirth, right? Pain and childbirth. And Adam's core curse, and obviously death is a big piece of everything. They bring death into the world. But Adam's key curse, the key component of Adam's curse is cursing the working of the land, right? The working of the land. From now on, it's going to be very, very challenging to bring vegetation into the world. Okay? After that, we find V'ha'adam yada et chava ishto. We're in source number 1. This is the beginning of the Cain and Hevel story. V'ha'adam yada et chava ishto. And Adam knew biblically his wife Chava v'tahar, and she conceived v'telad et Cain. She had Cain. V'tomer, there should still be some source sheets. V'tomer, and she said, Kaniti ish et Hashem. Right? Explaining the name Cain. How did he get the name Cain? Chava said, Kaniti ish et Hashem. Kinyan. Lashon kinyan means I acquired, I somehow acquired. Ish et Hashem, with God. Right? So Rashi points out, I don't think I gave you this, Rashi, right? As opposed to me and my husband, who God created on his own, now we did it together. We had this partnership. We might be running low on sheets, so either you can look on with each other, or so we can go make copy. I apologize. I think this program has taken off since the last time I've done it. That's great news. I should call it to all of you. I know you all have very, very busy
Your
lives.
reputation.
Oh, exactly.
2 years ago was
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Okay, so Kaniti et Hashem, I partner with God to make this little guy, right? And therefore they called him Cain. Vatosef laledet et achiv et Hevel. She continued to give birth to his brother Hevel. Okay? Vayhi Hevel ro'et son, v'Kayin haya oved adam. Hevel was a shepherd, and Cain was a farmer. Okay? That is all the biographical information that we are given about the two brothers, right? 2 pieces of information. Number 1 is their names. Number 2 is their professions. Anyone notice anything so far? Bizarre. Contrasting the two. Yeah.
There's a reason why she named him Cain, but she doesn't mention it.
Exactly. Beautiful, right? Cain has a reason for the name, whereas Hevel just kind of becomes Hevel. Right? Now, if we were to guess as to the reason for Hevel, we just learned about Hevel. What does the word Hevel mean?
breath.
Breath, right? When Kohelet, we learned Hakol Hevel. When he says everything is Hevel, what's he saying? This is like, Kohelet is not a very optimistic book, right? Quite the contrary. He's basically saying Hevel is nothingness, right? It's emptiness. So she named her first child, I have acquired a being with God. And her second child, not only does she not name, but the name that somehow happens to him is nothingness, right? I mean, I have
There goes Freud.
I have family members who are still very angry at their parents at their name. I think that's not uncommon. But I mean, come on, if your parents name you nothingness, that's not exactly a great omen for things to come, right? Okay, good. That's point number 1. Point number 2. Hevel is the shepherd, and Cain is the farmer. Now, this also triggers our biases, right? Why does this trigger our biases? Because we always know the shepherd is always the good guy, right? Who are all the shepherds? Yaakov was a shepherd. Moshe was a shepherd. David was a shepherd, right? The Ushpizin are called the 7 shepherds, right? Even though not all of them had the profession as the 7 shepherds, right? We think of our community leaders as shepherding us. Right? So when we hear that Hevel is the shepherd, so that kind of feeds into our biases as to who's the good one and who's the bad one. We'll see in a moment that might be a little bit more complicated. Now, Rashi explains why did Hevel become a shepherd. If you look at source Bet, it says, Ro'et son, lefi shenet kalalah adama, piresh lo me'avodata. Why? I apologize, I think we might be out of source sheets. If people are able to, if there's someone who it's convenient for you to look on with, let's try and spread them around. We don't need the Chumashim yet. And there's a seat over here if there's any brave souls who are interested. Okay? Good. With my students, it always looks like I'm somehow contagious, right? Whenever there's an opportunity to leave a safety zone, they always manage to find it. But adults are much braver. Okay. Good. So why did Hevel go into shepherding rather than farm, right? He couldn't become an accountant, right? There were 4 people in the world, right? His occupational choices were somewhat limited, right? So why didn't he become a farmer? Because the ground was cursed, right? Since the ground was cursed, he withdrew from working the land. That's Hevel. So why didn't Cain do it? Absolutely. Very, very good. Okay? Now, brief sketch of the rest of the story, and then we're going to try and then we're going to get to the Gemara that I think really puts it into perspective for us. Okay? What happens next? It was at the end of days, a very strange phrase that we're not going to explain today. Like the end of what happened? Okay? Who brought the first carbon to God? Who was the theological inventor, revolutionary, who realized that we're able to give back to Hashem? Cain, right? Mipri Adama, from the fruits of the ground. Inherently, there doesn't seem to be anything shabby or extraordinary about that. Okay? Now, in contrast, the Hevel gam hu mibchorot sono michal behen, right? Hevel hevi gam hu, he also brought a carbon, right? Now, he brought it Mibchorot tzono, right, from the choicest of his tzon. Umechal behen, and from the fat ones, right? Vayesha Hashem el Hevel the el Minchato, the el Kain vel Minchato lo sha'a. Okay? Hashem responds to Hevel's korban and does not respond to Kain's korban. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on over here, right? If we were objectively trying to balance between these two korbanot, who do we think has the advantage, or what advantages do they each have? Kain has the advantage that
First one.
he's first. This is his idea, right? Hevel's the noshleper who just comes along. Oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that too, right? Now, Hevel, it says that he does bring the best of his tzom, the fattest of his tzom, which sounds awfully impressive on the surface until you take one thing into consideration.
You said it was hard to do the land, and Cain worked harder.
Oh, good, excellent, right? We always measure effort, right? But there's a missing piece here. What was man's diet at this point?
Fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables. They weren't allowed to eat meat until after the Mabul in this week's parsha, right? So what do you need sheep for altogether? We're talking about wool, milk. These are basically luxuries, right? In other words, this is not the necessities of life. Is there a big advantage? Is a fat sheep so much of a bigger sacrifice than a thin sheep, right? In other words, on the surface, this seems much more impressive, and Chazal and many commentaries take Cain to task because you have the contrast, and a lot of people say that the problem with Cain is that he brought this shabby korban, right? That he didn't bring from the best. There have been a lot of very good approaches for, just by the way, an entirely alternate view that is very, very interesting and somewhat compelling. Rabbi David Foreman has a book on Adam, Chava, Cain, Hevel. You guys are familiar with it. I think it's my own biases. I found the first half, the Adam Chava part, more compelling than the Cain Hevel stuff, but I think that's just because I was invested in my Cain approach. But it's definitely, it's very interesting, and that is Cain bad guy. So I recommend that as well. So he says that the problem is, and this is, I think, very well accepted, is that Cain's korban was somehow just shabby. It wasn't from the best of what he had, and that Hevel's was. I think the fact that you can't eat meat is a very significant wild card to enter into the equation when valuing these. Yet,
You said that Cain brought the choices, but the word here is not choice, it's bechorot with a chaf, and not with a head.
correct. Bechorot, like the firstborn.
Does
Right.
that automatically mean that those are the?
I think that's the implication.
Oh.
I think that's the implication. But I'm not, you're right, I'm not 100% sure. It does kind of foreshadow the future obligation, the mitzvah that we all have, that to always give the bechor, right? But good, fair point. Sorry, I actually didn't catch that I could have been misreading it as a chet. So, good catch. Okay, great. Fine. Next. So, Vayichal Kain Ma'od, Vayiplu Panav. Vayichar over here doesn't mean that he got angry. Usually it means he gets angry. Over here it just means he gets very upset. He gets very sad or depressed, and his face falls. Vayomer Hashem al Kain. Very, very strange Musar Shmuz over here. Okay? Lama Charala, so that's why I gave the English, just because the words themselves are just hard to translate. Lama Charalacha, Lama Naflu Panecha. Why are you so upset? Halo im tetiv se'et. Right? Over here, Art School translates it as, surely if you improve yourself, you will be forgiven. Now, you called me to task on mistranslating chorot. Let's call them to task. They're saying that forgiven translates the word se'et. Se'et does not, right? Im tetiv, if you improve, se'et, they say you will be forgiven. That is their commentary. What is the word se'et? Vayisa. Yisa Hashem, right, we say in what's it called? It means to lift up, right? You can lift it up, okay? Now, forgiven is a fine commentary, but it's not a translation of the word. Halo im tetiv se'et, if you improve, you can lift it. Ve'im lo tetiv, and if you don't improve, lepetach chatat rovet, sin rests on your door, your petach, ve'elecha teshukato, I'm sorry, that was all in there. The atatim sholbo, but you can conquer it. Meaning, sin is waiting there to get you if you don't improve, but you can conquer it. What on earth is God talking about over here? Right? What's he giving him this mussar shmooze for? How's that going to make him feel any better? And what sin is he talking about?
Those aren't the same words as part of the punishment, each punishment.
Excellent,
Your-
very good.
your-
Huyim Sholbach. Rabbi Foreman talks about that a lot.
And your desire will be.
Right,
for
right,
true
right,
kind, yeah.
right. Very good. Rabbi Foreman actually has a somewhat potentially controversial explanation on that I highly recommend, that we're not going to explore over here. But
So-
awesome.
So it has already the association of punishment.
Yes, yes. But what chatat? What did Cain do? What sin? I know, like, until I started looking closely, like, I was kind of familiar with this parsha. I'm like, oh, okay, it's Cain. He killed his brother, so he's telling him to tshuva, whatever it is. But the chronology's all wrong. He didn't kill his brother yet. So what's going on over here? Okay? Vayom Cain and Hava Achiv. Another strange sense that we're not going to address today is, it doesn't tell us what the conversation is. Right? Cain says to Hevel, his brother, it doesn't tell us what it is. Vayi biotam sadeh, they were in the field. Vayakum Cain al Hevel achiv vayahargehu, and he kills him. Okay? Vayom Hashem al Cain ayeh Hevel achicha, where is Hevel your brother? Vayom lo yadati, I don't know. Hashem arachei anochi. Am I my brother's keeper? Right? Very famous. And then Hashem responds to him, Vayomer, Ma'asita, what did you do? Kol demei achicha toakim alai min adama. I'll mistranslate on purpose for a second. We'll translate it correctly a little bit later on. The voice of your brother's blood is screaming to me from the ground. And now, you are cursed from the land. Right? That the land opened up to accept your brother's blood. That is going to be cursed. From now on, whenever you work the land, it's not going to yield you its fruit. And therefore you're going to be a nav and not ba'aretz. You're going to have to be a nomad. You're not going to be able to settle on land. And Cain responds and he says, "What gadol avonim and so right? Is my sin so great, too great to bear? It's too terrible. You are banishing me from the land and from your face." As and I'll be cut off from your face. And I'll be a nomad. Anyone who finds me will kill me. So Hashem says, no, very strange language. Anyone who kills Cain, Shevatayim Yukam, will get this kind of sevenfold punishment. And he gave him this sign that anyone who finds him shouldn't kill. Okay, very, very cryptic passage. Okay, so let me tell you about a Gemara that I gave you the Tosas here. I didn't give you the whole Gemara. I wanted to fit it onto one page. But the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed Chet Amud Bet, gives a hour by hour, play by play of that sixth day of creation. Tells you what happened in every single hour. Hour number one, you create, not all about humanity. In other words, it leaves out the creation of animals. That's kind of separate. But in the life of Adam, so in hour number one, God gathered the earth to make him. In hour number two, he breathed into him, right? It goes through step by step. It says in hour number, I think it's number 8, whatever it is. So it says, Yardu arba'a lamita, I'm sorry, Alu shtayim lamita, yardu arba. 2 went into the bed and 4 came out. Okay? And then it says, in the 9th hour they sinned, in the 10th hour they're confronted, in the 11th hour they're banished. I forgot exactly how it goes. Okay? What's clear, and Rashi points this out, when it says, V'ha adam yada etcha ve'ishto, if you look in source Hey, it says, V'ha adam yada kfar kodem ha'inyan shel mala, kodem shechata. Cain is born before the chet. Tosfot says explicitly that when it says 2 went into the bed and 4 came out, as opposed to there is a minority opinion. Mizrahi says that the 4 that came out are Adam, Chava, Cain, and Hevel. Tosfot says no. Adam, Chava, Cain v'tiyumato. Cain and his twin sister. Hevel lo nolad ba'otopa. Now, the Torah doesn't tell us anything about these twin sisters, but they had to be there, right? Because otherwise, how did Cain have any kids? Right? So the Gemara is assuming that they had these twin sisters. And the Medrash brings down that Cain had one twin sister and Hevel had two twin sisters. If that's the case, clearly Cain and Hevel are not twins. Even though from the pasuk it might seem like they were twins, because there's only one conception, right? One Batahar and two Batosef Laledet with Hevel. According to the Medrash, that's impossible. Otherwise, they would just be quintuplets, right? You wouldn't have Cain and his twin and Hevel and his two twin sisters. And Tosfot says this explicitly, and most of the Rishonim agree with Tosfot. Mizrahi is a minority opinion. So let's look at that picture, okay? Cain is born in Gan Eden, pre-Chet, okay? Within an hour, I don't know what an hour meant back then, but within the hour, Shtayim Alu Lamita, Adam and Chava go into the bed, Va'arba Yardu, 4 come out. This is childbirth as vending machine, right? You go, this is unbelievable, right? In just minutes later, you have a carbon copy of yourselves. We start out as Adam and Chava, and now we're Adam and Chava and miniature Adam and Chava, right? This is amazing. And you see Chava's bewilderment by the whole thing, her wonder. Kaniti et Hashem. What an incredible world. Until now, God was the creator. Now, who's the creator? All of us. Right? Kaniti et Hashem. You have this tremendous optimism of our ability to partner with Hashem to create. Okay? Then they eat from the Eitz Hadat, and what happens? What are our means of partnering with God in the act of creation? There are basically 2 of them, right? One of them is childbirth. The other is farming, right? We create with Hashem. It used to be that Hashem created everything. In fact, right, the Medrash says that vegetation didn't even grow. Even though land was created on day 3, it didn't grow until day 6 because it needed to wait for Adam to pray for it, right? That until man kind of came in to do that last little bit. But he didn't even have to plow or plant or anything. What did he do? He asked God, boom, vegetation. Unbelievable, right? We have this incredible relationship with Hashem. Now they sin, and what gets cursed? Childbirth and farming, right? God seems to be saying, I'm done with you, right? We're no longer partners in this act of creation. You're on your own. Hevel is born, let's think about this, right? What makes it a curse is the fact that you have this contrast to what childbirth used to be, right? If they hadn't had any kids in Gan Eden, so then what's the curse? Okay, this is what childbirth is. But they had the Cain and his twin sister experience. Now they try again, and they go through 9 months of pregnancy and the pain of childbirth. You can imagine Chava saying, you've got to be kidding me. It's over. And if you look, just going out of order for a minute, because we're going to get back to this Rashi in a second, source Yud tells us that Zeh 130 shana misheniknesa mita al yadecha. I'm sorry. Halo parash b'meishtecha. I didn't bold it. But Rashi brings down over there, we'll get to the context in a couple of moments, that after the Chet, once childbirth was cursed, Adam and Chava separated for 130 years.
Raina, Goldman, and Elisheva Axelrod, can you please come upstairs to meet during the break to Mrs.
Hevel saw the curse of the
Raina
land
Goldman,
and said,
Elisheva
I'm
Axelrod,
out.
please
I
come to
want no
Mrs.
part of
Kastenstein
it.
during the break.
God cursed creative acts. We're not doing it anymore. It's over. And therefore, when Hevel is born, they don't even bother naming him. Right? What's their philosophy about the future? I'll call Hevel. It's over. There's no future to humanity. Right? There's that midrash that brings down that Adam, that says that the earliest source of the holiday of Hanukkah is that it was this winter solstice celebration. Why? Because Adam, after the Chet, the world was created in Tishrei. We said on Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Harat Olam, right? That was the day that Rosh Hashanah was the day that Adam was born, and he gets cursed, and then he sees that every day this gets darker and darker and darker, and he thought that was just going to continue forever, and that was just going to be the end. And then all of a sudden, Hanukkah comes, and he says, "Oh, it turns back," and that became this day of great joy. But immediately after the curse, they think childbirth, cursed. Farming, cursed. So what are we going to do? So Hevel says, well, least we can make ourselves warm, right? We can raise sheep, at least we can have some milk. Might as well enjoy it while we can, be a little bit more comfortable. But it's over, except one person. Cain says no, right? Because Cain heard at that same moment that it said, at that same moment that it says that Hashem is cursing the land. What's the language? B'zeit apecha tochalecha. On the one hand, that's a curse. On the other hand, that's a commandment. By the sweat of the brow, eat bread. And therefore he says, okay, so now my job is, you cursed everything. I mean, it's very appropriate for today. What do we do with curses? We fight like, any Cubs fans? What do we do with curses? We fight like crazy to beat them, to reverse them, right? In this week's parasha. So some people, I remember when I was a kid, people used to defend racism. Why would they defend racism? It's the curse of Chum, right? It's the curse of Chum, therefore. What do we do with curses? We fight them, right? We're here in Teaneck. One of the curses of Chava is, V'hu yimshol bach, right? That man will rule over women. What do we do with curses? We fight them, right? Work is a curse. It always struck me that different parts of Orthodoxy, I found this great irony, right? You have the right-wing world and you have the modern Orthodox world. There are these two curses. One is, b'zeit apecha tochalecha, that you have to work in order to eat, and the other is, v'hu yimshol bach. Each community seems to embrace one and fight the other. But I think the right answer probably is, right? Curses are bad, so we fight against them, and that's what Cain does. He goes and he says, "Okay, you cursed the land. I'm gonna fight it. I'm gonna work the land. You told me b'zeit apecha tochalecha. I'm ready to sweat." So Cain goes and he works the land. If you look also, Cain has an extraordinary amount of children, not he himself, but if you do the math, afterwards, after the entirety of his punishment. So it becomes clear that he has the Emes Yaakov Kamenetsky does the math, and he shows us that he had 7 generations in 130 years. That is impressive, okay? So in the farm and in terms of having kids, he says, Hashem, I'm not giving up on you yet. Right? Everybody else gave up. 3/4 of the world, I don't know what the twin sisters were doing, but everybody else gave up. He says, no, I'm fighting. Okay? Fine. So then, what happens? He decides, not only that, I'm going to bring a korban to Hashem. I'm going to give it back to you. And he was right. Korbanot work. Right? He's the one who had this incredible theological breakthrough that we can give back to Hashem. So why does Hashem accept his brother's korban and not accept his own korban? So if you look, there's a Gemara. There's a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, in Source Yud Aleph. We'll get back to the other sources in a moment. We're going a little bit out of order. The Gemara says, Amar of Chisda, "Mipnei ma ein kohen gadol neknas b'gdei zahav u'sneged lifnim la'avod avodah." Why on Yom Kippur does the Kohen Gadol not wear the Bigdei Zahav? Right? The Kohen Gadol had 2 sets of clothing. Right? He had the regular Kohen clothing; those are called the Bigdei Lavan, the white clothes. Then he had the special Kohen Gadol clothes called the Bigdei Zahav, 4 extra articles of clothing. Every other day of the year, he wore the Bigdei Zahav, the special Kohen Gadol clothes. On Yom Kippur, he changed back and forth, over and over and over. Right? It's like he's at a weekend bar mitzvah, he needs a bunch of different outfits, finally changing, always changing. Why? Because whenever he went into the Kodesh Kodashim, he always wore the Bigdei Lavan. So the Gemara asks, why can't you wear the Bigdei Zahav in the Kodesh Kodashim? What's the big deal? You go into the Holy of Holies, you wear your special clothes. So the Gemara answers, Chisda says, right? The prosecutor can't become the defense attorney. Gold is the vehicle that we used for our biggest sin, that we're still paying for, the sin of the golden calf, the Egel Zahav. So you want to ask for tshuva, that's fine, but you can't bring that as your forgiveness, right? You can't, at the moment that you're asking for forgiveness, remind God about your biggest sin, right? I don't have to give examples. We can all imagine this in our own relationships. Somebody messes up. You don't want that to be the peace offering that you give, right? So perhaps when Cain goes and brings this this Mipri Adama as the carbon, and then Hevel goes and brings his own peace offering. So why is Hevel accepted? Because Cain's right, korbanot work. You can give back to Hashem, and Hashem will accept it. In other words, it's not that we have to figure out what was good about Hevel's. Hevel's worked because korbanot work. That's what we see throughout the rest of the Torah. Why was Cain's rejected? I think what Hashem seems to be saying to him is, not yet. Right? Pri Adama, that is the chait. Right? When Hashem is talking to him about chait, there's only been one chait so far in the world. That's the sin of the Eitz Hadat, right? The tree of knowledge. That was done with Pri Adama. Now, a half a generation later, you're coming back to me and you're offering me that Pri Adama as a present? Too soon, right? We're not up to that yet. Now, Hashem, and therefore he doesn't accept it. Now, I think Hashem is trying to communicate this to Cain. I think this is meant to be a pump-up speech to Cain. It's not quite Rocky, but it's, right? Hashem says to Cain, why are you annoyed? Why are you, right? Lama charalacha, lama rafu panecha. Why are you depressed? Hello im teitiv, if you improve it, se'it. You can lift the land. You can do it. You can reverse the curse. Right? Ve'im lo teitiv, if you don't, lefetach hatat rovetz, sin is still there. Ve'ilecha teshukato, right? There is still danger there of sin, but va'atatim sholbach, you're going to win. You're going to conquer it. You can do this. Right? I'm giving a test today. I just gave this exact message from this yesterday to my students. Come on, you got this. You can do this. Right? Hashem is giving Cain this, I think, what's meant to be an encouraging speech. But Cain didn't get it. Right? And at this point, in his mind, he's taking on the world. Right? He has this philosophical dispute with his brother. Right? I'm Cain, I am Kaniti Ishat Hashem. He's Hevel. He represents this nothing, this reality. And therefore, if Hashem paskin, if Hashem ruled in Hevel's favor over mine, if Hashem determined that he's right and I'm wrong by accepting his sacrifice and throwing my present back in my face, okay, so I guess he's right. I thought I was right this whole time, but I guess he's right. And if that's the case, then nothing matters. Right? How come we all get angry at people? How come we don't kill them? Because there are consequences. Because there's a tzelem Elokim in them. Because people have value. Because we recognize that value. They have a future. But if Hakol Hevel, what's the difference? I'm jealous. I'm annoyed. I'm angry. I'll kill them. Right? Hashem says to him, Hayeh Hevel Achicha. Lo yadati, Hashem ra'achi anochi. Sounds like a slacker. Whatever. What's the difference? Yeah.
What did Hashem want? And he said, "Im teitiv." How was he supposed to improve himself?
Keep going. Just not yet. Keep working. If you look.
But if he only has the land, so if he can't bring a sacrifice, then he can't bring a sacrifice. Would that have been better?
Would it have been better not to bring a sacrifice?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the exact formula would have been. You're right. I'm not sure. And I think Cain would have a good argument to say, "What do you want from me?" Right? I totally. I mean, the answer would be, "Don't kill your brother." But before that, I think you're absolutely right. But we see this idea, right? If you look in this week's parsha, we often make the mistake of missing out on important parts of the parshiot just based on the way they're broken up. People have a tendency to learn the beginnings of parshiot and not the middles and the end as much. But the Noah story starts at the end of Bereshit, right? The Avram Sarah story starts at the end of Noah, right? Vayera starts at the end of Lech Lecha. We'll get to that soon. Right? When, I always ask my students, what parsha does Pinchas kill Zimri? And I'm happy when they say Pinchas, even though it's wrong, and they don't say who's Pinchas or who's Zimri. Right? No, he kills Pinchas in Balak and gets his reward in Parshat Pinchas. Right? So we always have to, when we start learning, look and see if we're missing anything on the back end. Noah was born at the end of Bereshit, and he got his name because they said, Zeh Yinachamenu al something, right? But Rashi says, basically, that at that moment, either they created the plow, I think he gets two possible interpretations, or just the earth started responding, and they said, he's the one, he's going to reverse the curse. As we'll get to when we talk about Noah, hopefully today, but we'll see. he was going to be the one who would reverse the curse. Once you have that curse, humanity's job is to fight it. What else could he have done? I'm not sure. And I think what he's saying is that ultimately, right, it's funny, right? What word do they use for the korban over here? They use the word mincha. I heard Rabbi Ari Khan, I heard a shir of his on this. He pointed this out. What type of korban throughout history is a korban mincha? The only kinds that are not animals, that are mipri adama, right? Cain ends up right. It's gonna happen. It's just not yet, right? And that's what Hashem tells him. If you look, before we mistranslate it, Hashem said to him, Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adama. So we said the blood of your brother. What does the word actually mean? Kol demei, it's plural, the bloods of your brother. We didn't say it before just because it sounds so awkward. What does it mean, the bloods of your brother? So Rashi says, Damo v'dam zarotav. He and his descendants. Now, we find Cain had all these children, but Hevel, we don't find ever had any children. Now, to be fair, he was killed, so that is a little bit of an excuse. But the point that Hashem seems to be making over here is, no, you were going to win. Hevel was going to have kids, right? In other words, Adam and Chava and Hevel, they all swore off childbirth. They all swore off farming. Even Hevel was going to have kids, but now you blew it, right? By killing Hevel, not only can't he now cross over to you, but even you can't do what you were going to say, what you were going to do. What's the punishment that Cain gets for killing Hevel? Arurata min ha'adama, right? The worst possible punishment that he could get. Right? Now you have to be nad v'nad ba'aretz. You can't take root in the land as you had done. So Cain responds and he says, Gadol havanim and so. It's so horrible. What am I going to do? First of all, notice again the different reactions. How did Adam and Chava react to being punished and cursed? Exactly, silence. They don't react. They just take it. What happens when Cain gets punished and cursed? He fights back. Right? He says, anyone who finds me is going to kill me. Why is anyone who finds me going to kill me? Because by giving me this punishment, what are you broadcasting to? I'm not quite sure who the rest of humanity is, right? But what are you broadcasting to the rest of the world? The Hevel is right, and I'm wrong. And therefore, you're just going to spread this Hevel mentality throughout. Everyone's just going to kill whoever they... Oh, that Cain, he's the one who killed Hevel, right? There's no consequences, there's no future. Nothing matters. Hakol Hevel. Okay? Good. So let's see how it plays out. So Cain goes, if you look in source 10, he has all these kids. 7 generations in 130 years. And they are incredibly productive. If you look, by the time we get down to Lemech, who's 7 generations later, so he has all these kids. He has, I think it's Yaval, Yuval, and Tuval Cain. Rabbi Foreman makes a big deal about the names. He's clearly right? These all seem to be different formulations of Cain and Hevel, right? But again, Ayin Sham in his book, I think it's called The Beast Crouches at Your Door, to do that, to talk about that. And V'achot Tuval Cain Naama. And Tuval Cain's sister was Naama. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. That strikes us as strange, just because the Torah doesn't usually go out of its way to tell us about daughters. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So usually when it does, there's something significant, and Chazal will tell us what they think the significance of Naamah is. But it tells us that these 3 brothers, one of them created tools, one of them created nomadic shepherding, right? He's the one who is the new Hevel, according to Rabbi Foreman, right? Makes a lot of sense. And one of them created musical instruments, right? They're out there, they're creating, it says Adam built a city, right? It can no longer be in a farm, so he built a city, and then he kept going around, and Chazal say that he built different cities. Right? He just kept going around and building and fighting and having more kids, right? And then 7 generations later comes as strange a story as we'll ever want to encounter. Story of Lemech. I don't know how many of you may or may not be familiar with this. Story of Lemech. Lemech is 7 generations after Cain. It says, Vayoma Lemech lenashav. Lemech says to his wives, Adah and Silah, Shema kolin nishnei Lemech. Calls a family meeting. Listen to my voice. Wives of Lemech. I don't think that would fly, but in any event, I guess polygamy wouldn't at all. In any event, Hazina imrati. Listen to what I say. Ki ish harakti lepitzi. I killed a man with my blow. V'yeled lechaburati, and a child through my different word for strike, right? Kishivatayim yukam kayin, for 7 times kayin shall be established, right? The 7-fold generation. V'lemach shivim v'shiva, I should be punished for 77 generations? That doesn't sound right. Vayida Adam od et ishto, and Adam once again knew his wife, Atelei Ben, and they had a child, Vatikrat Shmo Shet, and they had a son named Shet. Ki shatli Hashem zera acher tachat hevel ki hargo kain, because God replaced a different child in place of Hevel, who Cain killed. What's happening with Lamech? What does it have to do with Shet? And then just to make things a little stranger, we'll go straight to the last medrash. Tachat Hevel ki hargo Cain, michatiyat shel Hevel meharag Cain. Right? It says Shet is not replacing Hevel, but is replacing Cain, who needed to be replaced out of punishment because he killed Hevel. He ended up getting wiped out. Right? Why isn't it just that he's replacing Hevel? It seems like a much more straightforward reading. It gives this example of one tree falls and knocks over the other tree, so we have to replant the second tree. Very, very strange. Fine. So Rashi explains the story of Lamech. So what he says is, back in source Yod. So it says, Vayeda Adam, ba lo Lamech et Adam harishon v'kibel et nashav. Amar lahen. I didn't give you the whole part of the Rashi. My mistake. What happened was, there was this, Rashi brings down two opinions, so this is one of them. Apparently there was this Masorah, that the sevenfold punishment of Cain is that his line would die out after 7 generations. Okay? Lamech's children are the 7th generation, so they fulfilled the mitzvah. His wife said, okay, we'll do Puravu, right? God commanded Adam Rishon Puravu. We'll have our minimal amount of kids. Each wife had a couple of kids. We're done. Why should we bother having any more kids if they're all just going to get wiped out? Why would we bother with any of this? Right? Humanity continued with Shes. We all come from Shes. Cain and all of his descendants are gone. Right? So they said, what do we need this for? And they moved out. Right? So Lamech was not happy about this, so he calls them to a din Torah. That might be why there's a formal language, right? Hazina imati, pay attention to me, is because they're in court. So they go to the Gadol Adar. Who's the Gadol Adar? Adam. They go to Adam, and he says, tell my wives that they have to come back to me, right? We're married. And they say, why should we bother? We don't want to have any more kids, because we know they're all just going to die out. What's the point? And Adam says to them, your job is not to figure out God's cheshbonot. You do what you're supposed to do. Let Hashem figure out whatever it is for him. And they say back to him, aha! What about you, big shot? You've been separated from your wife for 130 years since the curse. Right? Miyad. Va'adam yada et chavishto. Right? Now, yada od et chavishto. Adam goes back to Chava, and Shes is born. Okay? So what we have here is Shes, the entirety of the rest of humanity, who we all come from, comes about through the vehicle of Cain fighting, right? In other words, Adam had still given up on everything, but Cain and his descendants keep plugging away. That's why we say how history's first murderer saved the world, right? Adam and Chava were separate. There wasn't going to be any Shes. And they keep plugging and fighting and building and having kids. And even though they were going to get wiped out, what ends up happening? That brings Adam and Chava back together, and Shes is born. And that's what the Medrash means, right? It's not that Shes was coming to replace Hevel. The Hevel philosophy, the Hevel slot, that's gone. Hevel is coming to replace Cain, who needed to be replaced because Cain killed Hevel. Right? That's that Medrash over there. Now, just as fine. Now, it happens. Just one quick cutesy side note that I noticed over here. This conversation, I just noticed this past Shabbos. This conversation between Adam and Nishei Lemech. So this happens later in Tanakh. Anyone familiar? This is a conversation according to Chazal. It's not in the Psukim. I didn't know that. My wife is a Navi teacher. She told me. Chizkiyahu had a nevuah that his child was going to be a terrible, terrible Russian. And he was absolutely right. So what he decided what to do was, he's not going to have any kids. gets very sick, goes to Yeshayahu, says, why am I so sick? What's the story? So he says, your job is not to figure, right? God can work out his own details. It's not your job is to follow God's commands. God said have kids, you have kids. If he wants him to be a Rush, it'll be a Rush, right? That's the way life goes. He got back together, they have a child. Child ends up being Menashe, who is as terrible a character as we encounter in Tanakh. So you know how at the end of every parsha, it tells you the number of psukim in the parsha? And then a word that's a gematria, siman, to it. I have never, ever found meaning in any of those. Not that I've tried that hard. They just kind of seem cutesy to me. You know, if David Feinstein has the art school puts in at the end of every parsha what the meaning is, I don't usually pay that careful attention until I noticed that, I just started having to do that, that it's Yechizkiyahu, right? That for Parshas Bereshit, it's Yechizkiyahu, which he's sometimes referred to, is the gematria of the psukim in Bereshit. So I wonder if that is a siman to this conversation that's foreshadowed over here, and it's not just a detail, right? If you look at the end over here, the next generation, Shais has a child whose name is Enosh, and it says about him, we're in source Tet Zayin, it says, As huchal ukro b'shem Hashem, right? Then he started to call b'shem Hashem. And then it says, Zeh Sefer Toldot Ha'adam, this is the Sefer, the book Toldot Ha'adam, the history of the man, and that's what's going generation, Adam through Noah. Now there's an opinion in the Medrash that Zeh Sefer Toldot Ha'adam is the Klal Gadol B'Torah. Right? Rabbi Akiva famously disagrees. Right? He says it's V'yato Ech Kamocha. But there's another opinion in the Tanoim that Zeh Sefer Toldot Ha'adam is the Klal Gadol B'Torah. What is it? What does Zeh Sefer Toldot Ha'adam, an introduction to all the begat? How is that the most important principle in the Torah? Right? That is a very surprising result. If we look, Rashi explains that that when it says Az huchal l'kro b'shem Hashem, huchal means lashon chol, right? Like profane. That Enosh was also very creative. What did he create? He created Avodah Zarah, right? He was the first one who worshipped idols. One generation past Shais, the new beginning, where we all come from, Enosh creates idolatry. What does Zeh Sefer Toldot Ha'adam mean? It means it doesn't matter. Right? This was still the right result to have a child named Chase, who would have a child named Enosh, who would bring disaster into the world, who would bring idolatry, which ends up becoming the downfall of humanity forever. That's still the right answer, right? Don't do God's work for him. Rashi brings down towards the end of the Parsha Bereshit, it says that leading into this week's Parsha, V'yitatsev al libo, that Hashem kind of had regret that he created the world, right? He gets sad just because people were so evil. So it says that a non-Jew went over to Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha and says to him, I don't understand, doesn't God know the future? What does it mean that he had regret, that he was sad that he created the world? So don't create the world. So Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha says back to him, do you have any children? He says, yeah. How did you feel when you had your children? I was so excited. I made a party. Everyone who was near me was excited. Didn't you know that your children are one day going to die? At the time for celebrating, we celebrate. At the time for mourning, we mourn. That's what we do. We just plug forward, right? We do what we're supposed to do, right? God wants to curse us. You know, bad things are going to happen in the future. Doesn't matter. Our job is pru urvu, right? We have children, we fight, we continue to beg and cling and do whatever we can to partner with Hashem in the creation of the world, right? So Bereshit says, when it says Na'aseh Adam b'talmenu b'dmusenu, right? It says in the plural, we shall make man. So who's the we, right? It sounds like a very dangerous pasuk. The rabbis in the Septuagint, when they translated it into Greek, changed it because that's such a dangerous pasuk. So Bereshit, I don't know that it was his idea originally, but it might have been. He says Na'aseh is we. God is talking to man. We're going to make man together, right? We are partners in creation. It's going to be harder now post-curse. Our job is, we continue to fight forward, that's the Klal Gadol B'Torah. And just as a last punchline, and then, give me 1 second, I'm sorry, as a last punchline, why is Naama written over there, right? That Lamech had a daughter named Naamah. Naamah was Noach's wife. Now, if you do the math, she would be close to 1,000 years older than him, but we'll take Chazal at their word, right? What are they trying to communicate by telling us that Naamah was Noach's wife? That even though there was this curse because of Cain's sin, that his line was going to end and he was going to be wiped out and the future of humanity is only going to come through Shais, that's the man, right? You kind of sneak in the back door and Cain ends up, producing the new Aim Kol Chai, right? The new mother of humanity. All of us are 50% Cain, despite the curse and the fulfillment of the curse, right? Sometimes the Torah not taking women seriously comes in handy, right? I don't actually mean that the Torah doesn't take women seriously. We might get back to that soon. But, right, in other words, we're going to see another example of this later on, that Chazal is having the daughter sneak in the back door to allow Cain's vision, even though Cain blew it and he couldn't formally be a part of it, his vision survives into the creation of the rest of humanity. I'm sorry that I put you off. Yeah.
I'm just trying to put it together. So if Cain was on the right track, but then he went and killed his brother and messed it up. He was on the right track in terms of we need to rebuild the world. Hevel was just kind of going along with things. So if he hadn't been killed,
we don't know. So to be fair to Hevel, we don't know. As the story stands, I think it's not Hevel good guy, Cain bad guy. It's Hevel, Cain both protagonist and antagonist, right? Flawed hero. Very flawed hero. I'm not saying, he killed his brother, right? 25% of the human population, which is, I think, unmatched in history, even by history's worst monster. But I think the story's all about Cain. Okay? Questions? Sorry.
I was just going to say, nobody had ever died before that point, so did he know what he was doing?
So a lot of people say that, right? If you look at his punishment is not a death penalty, but Golut, right? And later on, Golut, right, exile, becomes the punishment for an accidental kill and not an intentional murder. Some people say no one had died, he didn't really know what he was doing. Some people take that in the other direction. There's a different line in the Medrash that says, why does it say Demei Achicha, the bloods of your brother? Because he stabbed him in a lot of places because he didn't know where the soul was. So he had to try to kill him even more, right? That could cut in any direction. So I'm not sure, maybe. Whatever it is, I mean, I think we've all had this conversation, right? Oh, you never told me that I wasn't supposed to take the bucket of flour and turn it over on the floor. Okay, but there are some things you can figure. Maybe you didn't know that he was going to die, but that doesn't mean he's not culpable for his actions. But absolutely, yeah.
Where did Cain think that there were people out there ready to kill him?
So I'll tell you, I actually just gave a slightly different version of this for Mishma. One of my students asked that exact question, right? Who is he afraid of? So Rabbi Foreman, I'm not 100% sure. It's possible that he had descendants already, and it ends up, the other side of the Lemech Rashi talks about how Lemech, when he talks about that I killed a man and I killed a boy, that he killed Cain accidentally. That it's very strange. He kind of looks, that the sign, the Midrash says, was a horn, where he looked like an animal and they were out hunting. Lemech was blind. This doesn't sound like a very good idea. His son used to lead him around and say, there's an animal over there, and then he would shoot blind, and he ended up shooting. It's an extended story that we're not really, again, Ayin Rabbi Foreman, he deals with this a lot, but apparently, I think it's Rashi who says that it meant animals will kill me. In other words, I have now debased myself. Generally, I think the Midrash says that you can have a sleeping baby and animals stay away from it, right? But if you have a dead body, then animals will attack it. We have this natural fear that's in this week's parsha, right? That there's a natural fear from the animal kingdom on humanity. And what Cain is saying is that if you turn me into this kind of half animal, then I'm going lose that kind of protection? I'm not sure. The question is, certainly within the context of our talk today, the question is better than the answer.